We are back on Play It Forward with Nick Tag, who is an actor, a writer, and a producer of this film called Other Side of the Box. Nick Tag, thank you for being here.
Yeah, glad to be here with you. This is awesome.
Appreciate it. Nick, would you like to introduce yourself, your history, or your film in any way? Don't have to prior to starting.
Other side of the box, we made a while back now. We made it, I think, in 2018, and we did the festival circuit in 2019. So been a little ways back now.
Cool. Well, I'm happy to resurrect it a little bit. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
that
right.
old, but to chat about it, it's a really fun little horror movie. And I didn't really know if I was going to be laughing at the next scene or not, because there's certainly a lot of comedic elements to it. And the first question to play it forward is, where did that kernel, that germinal idea, before it was even a thought in your mind necessarily, but just that little seed that said, you know what, I'm going to make a movie about a head in a box that demands me looking at it?
To be honest, that was my buddy, my partner Caleb's idea. The way we were working at the time was often, and I'm so glad we had that partnership and still do to a degree, is that he had a lot of ideas. He often like, I have a vision of like this thing. And then I was like, okay, cool, I can make a scene out of that. Like I can write the dialogue. I know how to make those people speak. And he would come in with just like ideas. And so that's kind of where that whole thing started. And he was just like, uh he's a pretty brilliant guy, I think, in the way that he was just like, man, I just have this idea of just like a head in a box. I was like, oh, okay. Is it so it's like an alien head? He's like, no, it's just a head. I'm like, okay, so it has like big eyes. He's like, no, it's just a head in a box. And at the time I was like, okay, it seems a little, I don't know. But then when you start seeing it, it's like, oh, there's something actually really even more disturbing about it being just sort of like a normal human head in a box. That's like more disturbing than if it was something sort of supernatural. So
Okay, so at the point, so let me like I kind of rephrase this question a little bit then. Still on the first question. When you were like, okay, I can make this head work, when that moment came to you, what was it that you thought or felt that was workable about that model? What inspired you?
um well, I mean, two answers. One, again, I mean, it was his idea. That image was his idea.
Totally got that.
Took that and ran with it. When I think,
But you
um,
had to make it yours at some point to
yeah,
be able
yeah,
to, work with it.
yeah. Um, this probably isn't really the answer you're looking for, but
No, that's
but
whatever.
no, but the idea of it was always a little bit sort of intangible for me to like envision entirely until we got our table, and we're cutting a hole in this table and putting a box in it, and we're taking photos and stuff. And the first time my buddy got under the table and put his head through the box and peeked out, I was like, oh, okay, now I see how this is gonna feel.
Got it. All right, cool. And what was that feeling? Can you describe it?
Well, I mean, I was really stoked to have finally like have created the thing and been able to kind of jerry rig it, but it felt it, it has a weird sense to it. Like it's sort of creepy and it's sort of funny. It does that, like you said, there's kind of some comedy to it. I was like, oh, it's not really comedy, but I guess yeah, that just the image of it is sort of, it makes me want to go, huh, huh. There's that sort of knee jerk. It's sort of an odd, funny thing, and then it's like really not funny. So it has this kind of like duality to it when you look at it, I think.
All right. Well, let's segue into the next question. There's only three. The next one is, now that, you went from writer and producer, which is, an act of its own that's, some takes some heavy lifting most times. And then to viewer, and now reflecting on it, having made it 2018, when you watch the movie, how do you, how do you make sense of it? How do you put it together? What's the meaning of it for you
Now or when I did it then?
now? Yeah.
Um, I really just am very impressed by the tone. I've seen it so many times now, and whenever I do, I'm always like, oh, is this the time I'm gonna hate it? That I'll think it's, I'll see all the flaws. I still really enjoy it. I still find myself getting tense and nervous when I watch it, which I think is really a credit to the work that we did on it and that my buddy did when in the editing. Um yeah, it makes you really proud. It was a hectic time. So it was really amazing we were able to like kind of pull this thing off.
Well, could you take a stab at the meaning of the movie?
Um I mean, it's just supposed to be a fun like genre piece. We didn't really have like a message to be sent through the not looking away. We love like these rule-based thrillers. I wish I could say, oh, it's like some kind of commentary on something, but it really wasn't. We just wanted to do a really cool horror piece and see if we could work in that genre.
Gotcha. As a writer, oftentimes, you write something and then you're like, I'm not really sure what this is, saying and what it means or what the message is. But you're always writing within the narrative confines, and the narrative
Yeah.
confines always has, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And so within that narrative confine, when you hand it over to some consumer, they're always like, okay, well, let me trace this process,
Right.
this linear process, and interpret it. There's some
Right.
interpretation going on, or else there's no exchange, there's no communication between the viewer and the actor. And I know it can be very difficult oftentimes for artists to say, well, the meaning of that work was, well, it can feel artificial, and yet there's a message to it that your own interpretation of it is equally as legitimate as anybody else's.
Mm.
So I can share with you my interpretation of
Yeah, please,
watching it
please.
as a viewer, and it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are about it. you know um it's interesting, when I'm taking my notes on the movie and the storyline, I wrote down a stalker head in a box, right? And there's a real stalker there. There's this sort of nefarious, ambiguous relationship between this best friend and a guy, and he comes over and this girl, and there's some sort of three triangle going on, and
Mm.
seems to,
Yeah.
suggest that maybe he dated her. Now this other guy's dating her, there's some bad, and he's like, here you go, I'm gonna
Yeah.
F with you, and here's a box of this.
Right.
And so that kind of continues this weird kind of triangle stalkery kind of thing. And then you have this head that is demanding your attention, or it's going to fuck you up. It's going to get you. And if you're not looking at it, right? And having a child, I recently have a child. I don't know if you've had the pleasure yet.
Not
So
yet. No.
they're like stalkers for attention.
You can't take your eyes off of me.
You cannot take your eyes off it, or they get pissed.
Right.
And so, there is that element that is there in the story, right? This thing.
Mhm.
And how do we as people demand other people's attention, right? Because we live in a society where power, whether it's power through money, power through our titles at our jobs, power through, sex, whatever, we're demanding some attention, and we live in this commercial economy, and it's dictated by attention. So here it is, like, okay, here's this like kind of over exaggerated way of um making that commentary on how maybe we are all playing in this game of demanding each other's attention. What do you think of that?
I love that. That's my answer. You totally nailed it. I didn't
Yeah,
have to.
it's pretty good, right?
That was fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
I, you know,
So,
I love getting people's interpretations. I sort of feel like that's sort of uh, like that's the exchange. Like I kind of feel like I don't want to tell people what I think it's about because I think that what they think it's about is more important. Like that's why I loved English class as a kid. It's like, hey, if you can back up your thesis with evidence from the text, you're not wrong. And I sort of love that like exchange of ideas. That's really sweet.
well, it's cool to absolutely, and I can totally agree with that and connect with that, and that's why there is, and at the same time, there's a very special thing that comes from having a creator talk about their creation and what the creation meant to them as they were creating it, or as they reflect on it.
Yeah.
It's a unique opportunity, and that can inform a viewer's own interpretation of it. So
Right.
I think I encourage you, to, share that, because it's a special thing that can inform, our dialogue, or going
Yeah.
forward. And like, I talk to people and they'll tell me, I'll share something with them. They'll share, what they were thinking, or what they were exploring, what they were trying to maybe understand while they
Mm.
were making the film. And it's like, oh yeah, right. And that kind of can riff with my interpretation, and creates this real scaffolding to get all the dimensions of it. So
Yeah.
um
I can't lie to you, like
sure.
we were just trying to motivate characters. Like there was no higher thinking. We were just like, okay, here's this cool idea. I mean, script writing sometimes, especially in a short form format, is so technical because you have such little time to make things work. It's like, okay, we need some way to show why this thing would happen, and we have this amount of time to do it. And you're just trying to find pieces that work together. Um, I wish I could tell you we had this higher idea in mind. We really didn't. We were just trying to make these characters do the things we need them to do to make this thing exciting.
That's awesome, and that's cool too, because it's like, whether you're trying for a higher idea or not, there is, there are ideas in the context of, I mean, it's an imaginative process. You're tapping into that unknown, and making, some sort of sense of it, or some sort of experience at the very
Yeah.
least. So last question, playing forward, is now, since changing, or since making the film, how have you been changed as a person?
Um, I think I've really discovered the value of creating your own content. I think as an actor in this industry right now, it's like become really, really evident just how challenging and unlikely it is to make it just by auditioning alone. And it was really lovely to have some modicum of control over your career for a little bit of time. Make something that you are excited about with people you want to work with, and then ultimately to see it do really well, was one of the most rewarding things I've done, um, in the industry. Not necessarily as an actor. As an actor, it wasn't really a big acting piece for me, but it was more of a learning piece on how to start being a creator, and then to really see how good it feels to bring people together that I want to work together. Like, I was able to bring in some friends I'd worked with as actors previously, and that was just really lovely. And I think it's put me on a path of realizing that I need to kind of continue creating stuff if I want to have a future in this.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I totally understand. As an actor, it's so challenging. You're really relying on other people, and always, going in, and, there's so many variables that you can't control. I mean, it's like getting a film into a film festival, and, to be able to sit down as a creator and be able to, bridge both of those sides of the, theatrical line, is a really empowering experience, and a lot of fun for sure. So have you made other creative pieces? Are you, working on something?
Yeah, I spent the pandemic writing a feature script, which I'm still kind of shopping around a little bit, and then I'm about to start writing a new one, and see where that goes.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
challenging. I would like to maybe make a short potentially out of the one I'm about to start writing next. Um, but it just sort of depends. I haven't gotten that far in it yet, so I have to see if there's a short within it that would be you know distinct that I could pull from it.
cool. All right. Well, if you do it, let us know. And we would love to see it and see more of your work. Thank you so much for being on the show, Nick Tag, the short film of the other side of the box. And Caleb King nominated you. Thank you again, Nick. All
Um,
right. My pleasure.
Hey, good to meet you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, man. Good to meet you.